see on Skype. Your name's Warren. All right, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, because looked it up. I was like, what the fuck? First, I was Warren Ash. I was like, I don't know. I just figured. I guess
just one.
I just figured I was like Warren Ash. I was like, Indian guy. Like immediately just went to like the most racist. Like, oh, he's smart and he's making a satellite. Of course he's gonna be Indian.
Indian guy. Yeah. Warren Ash. No.
Yeah.
Eshpeter. Yeah. Last name.
Yeah. So yeah, dude. Fucking. What's today's date for future references? This is March 16th, 2020. Coronavirus wreaking havoc across the nation. Dude, it makes me think of fucking Anchorman. Like, Panda Watch. Day 30. Panda Watch. Yeah, but because, like, I don't know anyone with it and no one's dying, I mean, and that's an incredibly closed-minded thing to say. I'm very aware of the severity of this. I'm not trying to be like, this is all just a hoax. Like, no, like, I'm very aware of what's going on. But it kind of feels like South Park, the Day After Tomorrow episode.
I don't think I've seen the Day After Tomorrow in South Park. Haven't seen the one episode.
The one episode, it's one of my favorite. But they're like, Randy's like crawling through the street. They're like, we got a safe stand.
Oh yeah.
But it's just like 60 degrees, and they're like, it's 4. Yeah, they're dying. They're like, oh, it's
the last phase. You're heating up.
Yeah, I kind of feel it because I like. On the news, it's like national quarantine possibly coming down. And then I look outside and there's just like a girl on like a pink tricycle and like my dog's sleeping. It's just like coronavirus. Like,
yeah, it's interesting, especially as a college age kid.
Oh, yeah.
Because the kids are like freaking out. They're like, no, we can't go to school. This is horrible. They should stop it. School's canceled. You check your Instagram stories. Everyone's on a flight to Puerto Rico, $10 in the clubs on a Tuesday.
Coronavirus and Lyme.
Like, exactly.
Dude, oh shit! Before we keep talking, fucking introduce yourself. Sorry.
How should the intro go? How do you typically do them?
Some people, the Delta Force guy had like a 30-minute introduction because he's done more shit than the rest of us will ever do. Fucking works for the CIA, dude. He's legit.
Yeah,
he's Jason Bourne.
With it.
Other people are just like, "What's up? You're Warren. You're making a meme satellite, and you go to UGA. I went to UGA for everyone.
I go to Georgia Tech.
Oh, you go to Georgia Tech. Yeah.
I was a UGA student. My name is Warren Eshpeter. I am graduating with my aerospace engineering degree this year from Georgia Tech. Woo. But I went to UGA for about a year and a half, 2 years before Georgia Tech finally let me in. Ooh, not a true dog.
Yeah.
Not a true dog.
This is my brother. My brother went to Georgia Tech.
Oh, I'm with you, man.
Yeah,
I mean, the best part of being either in the mixed family or as a mixed person myself from UGA and Georgia Tech, people are like, who are you rooting for? And you can just say whoever's winning at the time. And they're like, defendable.
Yeah. See, I look at it as like I have Georgia Tech, so I can claim like the smart kids, and then I can say UGA, I can claim the fun kids. And
exactly.
That's hypocritical as fuck for me to say because I was a fucking loser in college. All I did was study. But yeah. So so I saw your post on SpaceX Master Race.
Oh yeah.
Goddamn great subreddit. Well, it's funny because I have a friend who's been on twice now, Rob, who works for NASA, the SLS.
Okay.
He 3D prints rockets and shit. Smart as fuck. And we were talking about like online presence, and he was like, NASA needs a greater presence. And I started talking about SpaceX Master Race. And so I hadn't been in a while, so I posted a link to the subreddit. I was like, hey, SpaceX Master Race came up because Rob from NASA said that it's like, no, even like the administrator of NASA is like, we need a better online presence because like Elon kills it with just memes and shit.
Oh yeah,
so
totally.
I was like, there is a true value in memes. And he was like, yeah. So I posted on SpaceX Master Race. Hadn't been in a while, and I saw your post, and it was like, I'm making a meme satellite, and I was like, I need him now. And I started scrolling through it, and it said UGA, and I was like, fuck yeah. And
dude, yeah, that's the connect. It was interesting because the whole backstory on what we're doing.
Yeah,
I mean, it just quintessentially started as a joke. It was me and some buddies at UGA in this like dingy physics basement lab room.
Fuck yeah.
And we were working on satellites, right? UGA had a brand spanking new satellite program by then. And we were working for a review super late one night. And we were like, oh, dude, how funny would it be if we just like beam down memes? A thing in satellites is they just kind of like beep down the important data every so often, right? So every 5-10 seconds, whatever, if they're in low Earth orbit, they'll be like, oh, here's how hot I am. Here's my battery. This is where I am. And typically people will sneak in just like funny phrases. We have a satellite that I worked on that blinks down quotes from Portal 2. Right. And so it's funny quotes. And so it started with that. We're like, oh, what should our funny messages be? And then it was like, oh man, we should just make a satellite that beams down memes, like MEMESat. And it's also the aerospace industry, and I'm sure other industries, but the aerospace industry is notorious for just acronyms out the butt.
Yeah.
Everything has an acronym. You have these whole acronym dictionaries. If you should go to NASA, they have like a whole catalog of acronyms. And so it's a joke that you backronym things. You come up with the name of the mission and then do it backwards. So we did MEMESat, and it didn't really have a meaning for a while. And we didn't actually work on it. We were just like, ha, 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 this is funny. We made a joke patch. Mm-hmm. I went and interned at JPL for 8 months. Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. So that's the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They do the Mars rover and a ton of crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. And me and my buddies were always joking about MEMESat there. They're like, oh, what are you going to do when you graduate? I'm like, oh, I'm going to beam down memes. Going to make a meme beaming satellite. And so me and my buddies from UGA were like, hey, we should try to make a company. I think that would be fun for some reason. Let's do it. And we started getting on Skype calls and writing out mission ideas and trying to like do some market research and all in all to make MEMESat like a legitimate thing. But, time goes by. One of them got committed to a company. He graduated that summer. So he went off and he's at TIVAC now in Irvine. They do small satellite systems and deployers. And then the other one started doing grad school, so master's, PhD, and gets pretty intense. And I'm still sitting there working the 9 to 5, just like memes. And then I still got a few more years of school of undergrad, right? Yeah. So I was like, let's do it. It was only 2018, so they kind of fell off. And then I came back to school, and I was like, oh, I could totally do this. And then I started talking to business professors at Tech, and I'm like, I want to do this. How should I do it? They're like, oh, is it educational? I'm like, yeah, for sure. It's going to be educational. And that's kind of when I started to coin the mission for education and multimedia engagement. Multimedia being my fancy word for memes.
Fuck yeah.
And I'm trying to think. It's either the worst or best advice I ever got. This one, just adjunct professor, was like, oh, no, don't make an LLC or a for-profit, because that's going to be hard to get amateur radio involved, because amateur is strictly, you cannot be paid for any communications, right? No pecuniary interest of any sort. Fancy lawyer term. I can't make money from any of it. Sure. If it involves amateur radio, right? And so there's a ton of layers so you don't get sued. But he's like, make a nonprofit. It's not hard. Mm-hmm. As a one-man team with zero money in college, I was like, all right, like 501 this random man in a building who sounded confident. I was like, let's do it. So I started the nonprofit. It is quite a process compared to just if you were to form an LLC. I can't say that with too much history because I haven't formed an LLC, and I'm sure that people operate them very strategically. But if you're me and you just dilly-dally through life and just throwing darts at the wall, they stick where they stick and you chase after them. You start the nonprofit, and then, you get into it and you make mistakes, and then somebody sends you mail or a lawyer's like, you cannot do that.
Yeah. Dude. Right? I know. Trust me. I know. I started a nonprofit right after college. I started a mental health.
Oh, really?
Started a mental health charity to raise money for mental health awareness.
Yeah.
Just pure great intentions, man. Fucking might have been a couple months before I was getting like weird letters and shit. I was getting phone calls, and I was like,
yeah, man.
Like you, man, I was just kind of freaking out. I was like, what? I don't want any of this. This is why I did nonprofit, so I wouldn't have to, because in my mind, I was like, it just means I don't have to deal with the real world, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Keep all the
if
guys
I
in
can get
suits.
tax exempt and people can write this off, I'm like, this is just free money.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It does not work like that.
People were like, oh, you got to have account structure and you got to have all this traceability of where the money goes. And I'm sitting there, right? Haven't done a business thing in my life.
Yeah, same. No idea.
And I was like, whoa. And so, I mean, I've been learning a lot, man. People are like, oh, engineering, you must be smart. People who get really intense about business things, like it's a totally separate skill set, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Math is math, but just the legality and memorizing all that stuff and knowing what you can and can't do in these like lawyer jargon
it's black magic.
It's nuts
because it's not an objective science. you know?
Yeah.
Like 9.81 meters per second. All right, got it.
Exactly. There aren't
Wavelength,
just
sound. It's like
hard calculations or like plugins for MATLAB, but it's interesting to me too, because it's in the US, everyone's like, oh, it's land of opportunity. You can go do that. You can start a company. And in my experience, it's almost been like, oh, you can do it if you can pay someone to do it who knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't, I mean, I'm a friggin' college student. Do I have money? No. I share a bedroom in a house in a kind of ghetto part of Atlanta for zero money. I sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
This is a nice room. This is my girlfriend's house. Oh, whoop. This is my girlfriend's house. She has stuff around. Like, she has furniture. My bed's on the floor. I don't have a TV. I just eat a lot of ramen and oatmeal in bulk.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, just go pay a lawyer $5,000. I'm like, that's really hard to do when you don't have $5,000. And until you do that, you can't pay someone to figure it out for you, right?
And there's no way to make the $5,000 without having the lawyer.
Without having the 501. Like, no one's going to give money to a charity that says we might become a charity one day. And they're like, well, if I don't have a guarantee, like, I'm not giving $5,000 to a stranger. So I've been bootstrapping it a little. But the thing, I definitely just went off on a tangent. The thing that freaks me out is...
there's, just so you know, there's no fucking structure on this podcast. There's no, like, let's say on the... Dude, I've had people on... Dude, I had on a guy that operated U.S. drones, right? Like, Predators and shit.
Yeah.
Dude, I think we talked about, like, if artificial intelligence became, like, an anime freak for, like, 3 hours. There's no fucking... Dude, he can talk about whatever.
All right.
It's a loose category when I get someone that does this, does X, Y, and Z. It doesn't fucking matter what we talk about. So keep going.
But the final point to that is just, everyone says land of opportunity. You can do it if you can do it, but doing it from the ground without having that background. And I was handed like a very good deck of cards in life, right?
No, so
it's nuts, because you go look at this paperwork that's mandatory that you have to do for everything, and just the terminology on it is crazy. And it's like, you need to pull someone in who doesn't have a PhD in this, and it isn't super official, because like, you don't need to be using these huge 12-point vocab words. I need it in prose. I still misspell forms of there, right? I can build a rocket, I can build a satellite, but I need to fully understand this stuff if it means that people are going to come back and attack me for it if I ever make money.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
Yeah, and I've had an experience where I've called the Secretary of State's office for the Charities Division to ask about a form. And I'm like, oh, hey, I'm on this page looking at this paragraph. What does that mean? And the person was like, that's a tough one. And I'm like, what? You guys did this? And they're like, yeah, just do what you think and you'll be good. I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's a fine if I don't do it right. And they're like, nah, you're cool.
That argument doesn't hold up in court. I did what I thought was...
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I need a transcript of that phone call, because when I get reamed out for submitting the wrong thing, it's going to be terrifying. And I called, I tried. I'm like, hey, what do I do? They're like, I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you advice. I'm like, you run the form. You know exactly what I need to put down.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but it's like a strange means to an end to just put memes in space, you know?
I'm completely behind it. Yeah, no, I think anyone outside of this conversation might go, that's weird, but not me. Dude, you say it to me and I'm like, no, I completely get it. I completely get, like, fuck yeah. To me, that's not strange. To me, that's like one of the only things in life that like does make sense, is like I told you, and I've said on this podcast a million times because I'm a fucking broken record, I got into medical school out of UGA, but I decided not to go, man. And it's so like whenever I kind of get like a sideways glance, like, you had the opportunity to be an MD and you have a podcast, like you have a podcast that's like marked by piss breaks, like, yeah. But to me, it's like at first it's like, yeah, no, this is all for fun, but then over time it's like, what the fuck is the purpose to anything other than just like pursuing what is important? Dude, I had a friend from high school who a year younger than me, is 28. Today's Monday, so
yeah, today's Monday.
There's a week, no, sorry, 2 weeks ago today. 28 years old, dropped dead, cardiac anomaly.
For real.
Well educated as fuck, good job in Atlanta. Done. To me,
life's a blip, dude. You gotta
that's what
you gotta do what's important to you, because there's not going to be another time.
Exactly. So for me, it's like, it's the stuff that may seem like funny is like, I can't figure out, like, well, I can't decide, like, what the fuck is more important. Even right now, coronavirus, you know, it's really got to be like 80 and above or have respiratory issues for it to be, you know, whatever the term, fucking, it could kill you. Yeah. But, you know, let's pretend this wasn't coronavirus. Let's pretend this was fucking smallpox, right?
Yeah.
You can see just how quickly out of the blue it comes, right? Mm-hmm. I'm 29 years old, never seen anything like this in my life, and it's just here, and all of a sudden it's like, what the fuck is going on? We live in World War Z now. But it happens so quick, dude. You know, to me, this is like a perfect, even though it's happening so quick, and it seems like just yesterday we were making, like, you know, World War III memes, and now we're here. We're in a new meme paradigm already.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, although that seems lightning fast, it's actually glacially slow when compared to how much heads up most people do have when death comes. A car accident, dropping dead from a cardiac anomaly, fucking, you know, terminal illness. It's, you don't get this. We all think that there's going to be, like, you know, okay, I'm 80 years old, you know, I'm winding down in life. Now what's important?
Yeah.
Dude, it comes out of nowhere. And it's, and when that's said and done, and you're fucking like, okay, let's pretend this is smallpox, not coronavirus. Let's pretend it's pretty guaranteed we're all going to fucking die. I can look at it and go, dude, I've been, like, pursuing a dream for the last, like, several years, but more specifically the podcast the last 3 months. I can truly say I have zero regrets. I'm so happy I didn't go to medical school. I was so miserable. But to me, like, what is more real than that? What is more serious than that? Like, to fucking pursue it and do what you love now. It's so, to anyone outside, they might be like, the fuck, you made a podcast and this guy's making fucking memes. Like, but to me, it's like, now that it's like shit hits the fan, who has the dumbest grins in the room? You and I, because it's like, you know, I'm doing the thing. Sorry.
You know Bill Burr?
And the philosophical rant there. Sorry, Bill Burr, what about him?
Oh, no, I'm going to continue the philosophical rant for a second. I mean, he had
the futon.
I don't even know if it was part of a comedy routine, but he was saying that...
The futon?
The futon, yeah. You're living a high-risk life.
Yes.
Living your normal job, sleeping next to the wife you hate. If you just keep thinking, oh, this is going to be it, I'm going to keep doing this, and then one day I'll be happy, right? Yeah. Versus going out, taking a shot at your dreams and going for it. Because something that... So I have anxiety, and I've lived with it for a while. And I mean, even outside of that, just how we raise kids in modern U.S. society, especially like upper middle class, is you need to go out, you need to make as much money as possible. You got to do your best to set yourself up for life, which is good. Parents want their kids to be successful, but no one ever said, like, hey, take a break. Like, hey, go chill out. I have fantasies where I go on like a work away where I'm just in Europe on a farm somewhere, chilling out for a few months. But I'm like, oh no, that'd be such a waste of an internship opportunity or a research opportunity.
That's the mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's work. And you're never done. And you're supposed to feel proud and fulfilled at some point. But you gotta really find it in yourself to be fulfilled by what you do. And I think there's something pure about MEMESat in the sense that we were all like, oh, this is funny. This is a joke.
Yes.
And then we put that on a more public platform, and it blew me away because at first I was like, oh, I was on Reddit. I'm like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And these people were like, oh, this is going to be cool. This is going to be funny. But I started getting hit up from kids in Finland, Sweden, Lithuania, Canada, South America. Right. And they were all hitting me up and they're like, hey, your post was awesome. Like, I've been struggling, but do you think I can do aerospace? I'm like, yeah, dude, you can do whatever you want. I didn't get into the school I wanted to go to. I was told, no, you're not smart enough to be an engineer. My worst scores were math and physics. And now I'm about to graduate with highest honors because it's just nose to the grindstone. Yeah. And we live in a society where people are like, oh, you're good at math, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not good at math. I can't do math. You have all these benchmarks and standardized tests and whatever, and you're just put up against everyone else, and it's either you're good or you're not, or you excel or you don't. And kids don't learn that it's like training, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if you don't practice a sport, you won't be good at it. You're not going to have coordination. If you don't practice math, you're not going to be good at math. So anything can be possible. I'm convinced people can do the dumbest things, but do them so well that,
you can,
it works out.
You can, I truly believe that you can, that philosopher Alan Watts said, what would you do if money were no object? And they said, do what you love, riding horses, painting. Now, this guy died in 1972. And he's giving this lecture to college kids. And they're like, so I have students come to me and they're like, oh, I'd love to be an author. I'd love to be a poet. I'd love to make, tea. I'd love whatever. And then they always kind of all end with it. But everyone knows you can't make any money doing that. And he's like, and he goes, and so my advice to them is, do what you love and forget the money. And he goes, it's not just like an idyllic thing. He goes, because if you do what you love long enough, you will become a master. And once you're a master, you can charge a fee. And he goes, it's that simple. And this is a dude who, born in 1915, his parents were like, you're going to go into the seminary. And like, he ended up like long hair, wore like fucking like Japanese robes and lived on a fucking houseboat in Sausalito, California. Like he just died in 72, but you ever see videos of him, he's just always like laughing and shit because he just did what he wanted to do for so long that he got good at it. And to the point where people paid him to talk.
Yeah.
Now there's a long middle ground where you have to get good at it, and everyone kind of looks at you like you're an idiot. Like that's the part that no one really glorifies, but that is the end. Like, dude, Steve Jobs said it. The only way to be truly successful is to do what you love, and the only way to do what you love, or is to do great work, and the only way to do great work is to do what you love. Like, dude, like fucking Post Malone didn't grind and go, I'm gonna be a musician, and he just fucking loved it. And now he's Post Malone. Like, it's, you have to choose the thing you love. And there's a lot of middle ground. But, like, it gets to a point where eventually it breaks. Look at Joe Rogan. Everyone's like, yeah, well, he's Joe Rogan. It's like, but look at the first 1,000 episodes. Like, there was a long time where it wasn't the Joe Rogan experience. I remember hearing the first one that I heard in December 2011 at UGA. It was barely a year old. I was like, oh, this is nifty. Maybe this will go somewhere. And now it's like he's like shaping presidential elections. Like
exactly, you just hone the craft, grind it out, and it just successful comes.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'm
no. You're not it's a conversation, right?
I'm terrible about that. Yeah, you were like 4, and I was like perfect. But I normally find when I like get back from the gym, and like the podcast doesn't start right away, anxiety. I have like an hour of just like existential, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Just like, where's the podcast guest? What do I do? Should I be prepared? Just by nature, whether it's pre-med or whether it's doing a fucking podcast. So today I woke up later, went to like Walmart, went to GameStop, and I was like, I'm going to go like, cause I know how long I have to shower and meditate right before I do the podcast. So I was like, got it timed out. I'm going to roll right into this fucker. You text me, you're like, yo, I'm ready to go at 3. I was like, fuck. And I was like,
what were you picking up at GameStop?
Oh, dude, so I got a fucking used Xbox 360 like a week ago for like $40. Went and got that one. Just got Modern Warfare 3. And because what I like to do is I like to find a game I've played 1,000,000 times so I don't have to think about it, and then I just mute it and I listen to audiobooks. So what I do is I play games and I actually learn. So like I've literally listened to like hundreds of hours of audiobooks. I'm having on an author sometime in the next month named Garrett Graff, who wrote Raven Rock, a book about nuclear bunkers. This is the #1 best-selling book on Audible last year. This dude's like a legit author. But so I was like, I'm going to listen to this book again, write down some notes, and just play video games while I do it. So I'm trying to like pioneer my own, play video games and learn. Anyway, the fucking 360, to no surprise, like start to like fuck off after like a week. I was like fully expected. So I brought like the warranty over there. And I was like, yeah, man. I was like, can I just get like another like used 360? I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm just playing like Grand Theft Auto Free Roam. Like, doesn't matter. And he was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, they didn't have any. I was like, it doesn't really surprise me. Like, who the fuck carries used 360s? And he was like, well, no, I gotta like honor this. And I was like, that's fine. Where are you gonna have them? He's like, well, we don't have like truck deliveries, and for a while because coronavirus. And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck. And he was like, well, technically I can do this. And I was like, to what? He gave me a brand new Xbox One X. And I was like, yeah, right. So I fucking drove to Walmart, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go get like because Grand Theft Auto 5 and Just Cause 4, those were like remade for Xbox One X, like 4K HDR, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna go pick those up. So yeah, dude.
Oh yeah.
That's what I was doing. So I was downloading everything. I've got this fucking supercomputer, and I was like, I'm probably the only person in America that's like benefited from coronavirus. Like, I just got a brand new.
Dude, so far, you and like seventh graders who had the longest weekend of their life.
Exactly. But yeah, so I was like downloading it, and I was like getting it all ready, and I was like gonna set the download so it's going while I'm doing the podcast, because you know, like a meme, you fucking open up Xbox, it's like ready to play, and it's like 28 gigabyte.
Gig
yeah, literally pulled it open. It's a 27 gig update, and I was like, perfect, because I got a text from you, and I was like, yo, ready to go, and you are. I was like, fuck. I was like, but yeah, fuck, dude. I'm sorry you have to go at 5. Fuck that.
What time is it? I mean, we can probably extend it. That was just a soft deadline.
Oh, okay. All right.
We'll hang out. I wanted to set something up so I could back out if needed, but this is an enjoyable experience.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. No, dude, I totally, yeah. I'll have guests on sometimes, and I'll be like, I can only go for 45 minutes, and I'll be talking and having a ball, and they're like, yeah, man, you gotta go. I was like, oh, what? No, I was lying. Like, I was like, we can chill. Yeah. So I don't know.
That was if I got bored.
Yeah. That was, all right, thanks. If I'm sitting here with the clipboard, I'm like, and you wanted to build us satellites, and it's so last night I listened to a JPL lecture on cubesats, and just to sort of like actually know kind of what the fuck I'm talking about, even though I still don't. But
fake it till you make it.
Yeah, fuck yeah. So for anyone listening, a CubeSat is just like a really fucking tiny satellite, and it's basically like an economical way for anyone to launch shit into space. And I didn't know this, that they sort of hitch rides on bigger payloads. Yeah. I thought they had their own but that makes sense. It's all about the economical.
So now there's actually this whole market of these, I don't want to call them miniature SpaceXs, because if they hear this, they'll get upset. But you have your big private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, right? That are doing the big launches. They send big payloads to space. And then CubeSats can hitch a ride as secondaries, because NASA or someone will pay for, the DoD will pay for a launch. They'll put their big $300 million satellite thing on the top. And then they have, and they're like, shoot, how can we save some money? So they're like, oh, you're from college? You want to launch a brick? And these satellites are like, I wish I had a model. They're the size of like a softball to a loaf of bread. Are the most common sizes.
Here's a microphone.
That's perfect. Yeah. So softball to a loaf of bread, and then you can kind of rearrange them. So they come in units. They're called U's. So you get your 1U, which is the softball, 3 of those stacked together, 3U, and then you can have 2 3U's, make a 6U, and then the biggest form factor where they have deployables made for them, like you can get launched, is a 12U. So it's just 2 of these big loaves of bread stacked. But CubeSats were essentially designed in the 90s. And the form factor got pretty popular because it's, I don't want to call it cookie cutter, but it started where people would make them in like different form factors, and then people started making deployers for them, right? You have nano racks with a deployer at the ISS, and they're like, oh, we can only launch if you fit these dimensions.
So explain that to everyone listening, because I would like to think in my enhanced intelligence that I know what you just said after listening to that lecture. I know what the ISS is. But there's some people listening right now going, what the fuck? So, nano launchers from the ISS? Like, I thought these guys were talking about memes and dicks. Like,
you got so you have these big spring-loaded boxes, right, that you shove your satellite into. I'm trying to think. It's like
JPL guy said it's like Jack in the Box.
It's like a Jack in a Box. Yeah, you have this thing spring-loaded, torqued down, and then the door opens, it deploys off with the spring, and that's how you eject your satellite out. And they have a big, essentially like a commercial grade deployer box that can launch a bunch of satellites, just like load them up like a pellet gun, attached to the International Space Station. CubeSats are extremely popular to launch from the ISS because the ISS gets refueled a bunch, right? And they have some mass to kill when they're getting food and trash back and all that. And so they put some educational missions on. And NASA has a couple programs that we're trying to take advantage of and that a lot of university groups and hobbyists take advantage of. They're called CSLI, which is the CubeSat Launch Initiative, and Alana, which is the educational launch of nanosatellites. And so CubeSats are nanosatellites, which, like the prefix, is like much, much smaller than a traditional satellite. So people are often like, how big do you think the typical big satellite is?
Well, for a while, I always just imagined them the size of like a direct TV dish when I was little. But I actually got curious about that last year, and I was like, I wonder how big these are. So I started listening to some books on the NRO and like the early spy satellites.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, Corona wasn't one of them? Corona, isn't that the first program?
Oh, now really? I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Now we've come. It's Corona and then Keyhole, but now we've come to Corona, so that's fucking full circle.
Full circle.
The memes are writing themselves, but yeah, dude, I was learning about them and they're fucking huge. Some of the spy satellites are goddamn. And everyone knows like Hubble telescope, the size of a school bus. Like it's almost like that, and like the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Like the big yellow one's the sun. Yeah, but it's some of these things are fucking huge, and I never knew that. So yeah, to answer your question, is that correct? Yeah, some of them they unfold.
Yeah. Some of them, the bigger ones, are the size of a school bus, and then that's when they're stowed, right? And then they deploy these huge antennae or these huge long booms for solar panels or magnetometers or something, whatever you're doing instrumentation with. And so it's a crazy concept that you go from that, and they still make satellites that big. The technology is crazy good now, right?
Yeah.
And so there's stuff you've never heard of that's completely classified.
Absolutely.
So there's a famous public satellite called Worldview, and it's an imager. It's this huge telescope pointed at Earth, and it gets a spatial resolution of something like 30 centimeters per pixel. So this thing is chilling in space, and it could identify your shoe or you from space. It's nuts. It's like someone took a picture from a drone just chilling above a football stadium. You can see it that.
Well, interrupting you, sorry. They bragged about taking pictures of the headlines of newspapers in fucking Red Square or whatever the fucking place outside the Kremlin is during the Cold War. They used to zoom in, just read the newspapers, just to fucking flex. Like,
The
60s.
And so none of that capability is like publicly confirmed, right? Because you can obviously do things, but the joke when I was at the Air Force was, if you're walking around on a beach, they can tell you what type of shoe you were wearing just by looking at the footprint from space, right? And so, but now those big satellites are super expensive to launch. If they fail, well, boom, you just blew hundreds of millions of dollars. So these tiny satellites, which were originally made for education, right? A couple of university groups trying them out, just saying this will be cool. They're starting to do more and more legitimate science. I mean, we had these two satellites called Marco A and Marco B, also nicknamed Wally and Eva.
Why would they not name it Marco and Polo?
Because it was Mars Cube 1 and Mars Cube 2. So
the JPL guy talked about that last night. They had
these satellites go to Mars, and they were chilling. They have there's a couple big companies coming out, or there are big companies coming out of the woodworks. All these startups are doing.
Yeah. Keep talking.
Startups are doing satellites where
one thing I've been doing more is getting a notebook and writing down my thoughts, so I stop interrupting my guests like a fucking douchebag. Where I'm like, hey, let me plug in.
No.
I hate myself.
Break it up when I ramble.
No, because I'll listen to the podcast again because I think the guests are interesting, but I hate my dumb fuck voice. And whenever I'm listening, I'm like, stop interrupting, asshole. someone telling like a dope story, and then you hear like, yeah, well, one time I was Googling, and I'm like, fuck you, Tommy, you piece of shit. So yeah. So you said a bunch of companies are coming out.
Yeah, they're coming out of the woodworks. There are two really big companies, Spire and Planet, where they have constellations of hundreds of these cubesats, and they're doing imagery for logistics, tracking, whatever, selling to the government too, I'm sure. But they have these constellations of so many of these cubesats, which are like $100,000, $250,000. Their launches are exponentially cheaper than if you have a huge fat mission. And they're making a solid business plan, a business model selling these images. And they have different levels of satellites they do that provide different qualities of images. And it's crazy because as computers and everything gets smaller, right, this little package is becoming the perfect box to test things out in, right? Everything's getting smaller. So you're saying, what can we do on this size? What level of science can we do? What can we accomplish? And boundaries are just being broken again, right? And so you're having all these missions where, I mean, the Air Force is coming out and doing intense science. You have these commercial companies doing what other companies would do. I mean, you're seeing companies kind of like SpaceX doing Starlink, but even on a smaller scale, doing telecom from space. And it's becoming so much cheaper and more available to do that. I mean, there are high schools and private middle schools where they're getting kids to put parts of a satellite together and send them to space. And it's beyond it being a great platform to really, I think, kickstart the aerospace revolution in our society now. It's really just allowing people from backgrounds where they might say, oh, I'll never do X, I'll never do Y, like rocket science, right? You can bring that down so many zeros in price and start bringing it in front of them and say, no, you can. You're working on it now. You're doing it, right? Like if I got into college, I got denied from aerospace. I finally got in. I was over the moon. People were like, oh, you want to build a satellite? And I'm like, I can do that. And they're like, yeah, dude, come on. We're making poop jokes and memes. And I'm like, haha, NASA gave us $250,000. And this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it's such, when you talk about space in any capacity to kids, to adults, anyone who's not in aerospace itself, they're like blown away. They're like, oh man, that sounds so hard. Everyone's in awe, right? The Big Bang Theory is a show about these theoretical physicists and astrophysicists that are just nuts and weird, right? But if you go into aerospace engineering, it's normal people wearing normal clothes and t-shirts and listening to rock music, putting this together. Yeah. And it's like if you told me to go fix a car's engine, I'd be like, no way, Jose, I have no clue where to start. I couldn't do that. Yeah. But, you get trained in it for 4 years. It's not your crazy rocket science hard. It's just normal hard. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. So CubeSats are taking this crazy thing of putting something in space, right? Going to the final frontier and doing rocket science. And they're bringing it to such a usable platform and such a wide audience that you're starting to see these K through 12 schools get involved. And I think it's awesome. That's because
insane. That is awesome.
You're really just breaking down the boundaries that we've put up around these kids saying, you can't be a rocket scientist. You can't be, anyone can do it. Yeah. So it's really, it's been and NASA's enabling you too, right? With these free launches and stuff. And so it's been an awesome experience to be a part of that and see it grow. And I think it's going to be it's a turning point right now. Because through the 2000s, there weren't that many CubeSat launches, and it's kind of rising exponentially, where in 2018, we saw a couple hundred. In 2019, we saw even more, and it's projected to go into the thousands in these next few years. Fuck yeah. And these are just these little boxes of bread beeping, doing science, doing important science too. And, just getting kids ramped up in space. I think we've done a lot of what we can as far as, I don't want to say what's on the ground, right? But for us to continue developing, I think a lot of what we're doing has to be space-based and pushing the boundaries of how we can move around and achieve things in space and learning about that environment. And I was talking to some science teachers, and I thought it was really interesting because when I was in high school back like 6 years ago, all these teachers started doing computer science, right? Computer science was becoming this huge thing. And Arduinos and microelectronics were. And they're saying, oh, we're going to educate kids because, you know, making apps and knowing software is such a huge thing today. Like, you had the .com bubble, and then now everyone's making an iPhone app to get rich. Everyone's making games. Everyone's making websites. And so high schools would just get deep into that. They're saying we are preparing our kids for the future. And talking to all these teachers now, they're saying, yeah, actually, we're planning to pivot in the next year or two, and we're going to start doing space-related curriculum. And I've had multiple high schools around Atlanta say this to me. And I was like, really? That's crazy. It's kind of niche. What's going on? You have the Space Force coming out. You're going to have exponentially higher funding in the realm of space and aerospace, either planes or spacecraft.
Yeah.
And with private companies like SpaceX and Rocket Lab and Blue Origin and Firefly and all these companies, you have this incrementally lowered cost to get into space until it's just going to be as easy as, I don't want to say like building a paper airplane, but it's going to be like an activity all classes do.
Yeah, it seems like it's getting there. Some I wrote down was it makes me think of like high school like dissections. Remember in like high school you cut open a frog and you'd have your formaldehyde and you'd have your, but I mean, you know, opening up like an animal and being able to like, you know, look at shit in microscopes and stuff, that literally used to be like, that was like the apex of science. It was like, you know, there'd be like 2 microscopes in the world, and it was like, you know, it's back when fucking there was still kings and shit, and it was like, this is the future.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'll send you a link to. You need to listen to "Accessory to War" by Neil deGrasse Tyson. He kind of touches on kind of the importance of getting everyone. I'll send you a link after.
Okay.
But it makes me think of that, or even something like, you know, organic chemistry at UGA. It would be like, you know, some of the shit we were doing was like, you know, fucking with like, you know, like spectroscopy or like IR spectroscopy or nuclear spectroscopy. And we were like, you know, you just have these labs designed to teach you how to use the hardware and, you know, the science behind it. And, you know, literally doing shit on a molecular scale with like benzene rings and heating shit up and doing all this other, you know, I sound really intelligent. But it takes these things that were reserved for like the upper echelons of, you know, like the temples of knowledge and research, and bringing it down to everyone, or even Google Maps. Think about like how classified the keyhole satellites were. The NRO was not recognized as there's a book I listened to about the NSA, and one of the guys there left the NSA to work at the NRO, and the NRO was brand new, the National Reconnaissance Office. Mm-hmm. And like the other guy who had like a top secret clearance too, who was friends with the guy at the NSA, he was like, where are you going to work? He's like, oh, I'm going to work in a small building in Washington. And he's like, what do you do? He's like, well, nothing, because what I do like doesn't exist, kind of like wink. But like the NRO wasn't even recognized as existing until like 30 years after it was opened. And now, I mean, dude, the Corona satellites, maybe it was the keyhole, they used to take pictures. They'd shoot the fucking canisters back into the atmosphere.
Yeah, a film.
They'd have the ablative shield to burn up, and then they deploy the parachute at 60,000 feet, and a fucking like C-1 something Starlifter would come by and literally snag it out of the sky at 30,000 feet, and then that shit would come back to the Pentagon where they'd look at it. And now you can get on Google Maps and like just fucking scroll in and be like, hey, there's my house, like, you know.
Yeah.
And you can do it in resolution that even these guys couldn't dream of. You can find fucking like crop circles of like dicks and tits, and it's just like, hell yeah. But it's still bringing it down to the like the layman, and it's inspiring people. You know, you got to be you can't really inspire kids when everything's classified and you need, you know, a 2-year background search just to get into the lab. Like, but now you can get inspired, and that's what I think CubeSat, by the way you're describing it, that's what it sounds like. It's like, no, you're not shooting up this, you know, you're not shooting up this intelligence community satellite that's, you know, shooting back 50 terabytes a second of data for real-time special forces. It's like, no, you're kind of going up there and you're like a glorified Sputnik, but it's like even just getting something into low Earth orbit. Like that,
Oh yeah.
literally for the vast majority of human history, like was the realm of the gods and nothing else.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that is like, in like the 60s, I had a guy on that did internships for NASA, and he's going to come on this weekend. He's fucking developing robots that literally run off like your brain waves. This guy's building Skynet. He needs to be stopped. But he's talking about how his favorite thing about it is inspiring kids to get into STEM, because he's like, you can't, you can show them supercomputers or whatever, and it's kind of like, okay, whatever. He's like, but when you show them like transformer robots battling and we're just using our like minds to do it, he's like, that's how you inspire them. And what he and I talked about was like, it's like the space program or space race under Kennedy, like we're going to go to the moon. That inspired a whole generation, because it was like, we're going to go to the fucking moon. And then we just kind of, atrophied for a couple decades. But it sounds like
petered off a little bit.
And if we can do this, get cubesats up for any like jackass like me and you, just like send up MEMESat, like, and we can talk about it on this even this podcast. Like, it's the whole like, it doesn't have to be like Walter Cronkite tonight. It's like, no, dude, it's just two assholes just talking about like, just, literally dick jokes in the first minute. Like, but it brings it down to where if you can inspire and get this many kids involved, so there's a reason to this whole rant. Well, now in that mass field of people you're inspiring, now you're, maybe it's maybe for every million people, there's 10 Elon Musks, but only one of them actually becomes Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Well, now, if you can hit 1 million kids in elementary school with the idea of cubesats or fucking whatever, the vast majority might still be like, yeah, that's cool, but, not interested, whatever. But now you might be able to literally enable 10 Elon Musks. And be like, so now it's not like I'm a kid, I'm interested in it, but I can't get my hands on a fucking Falcon rocket or a Delta Heavy. Like, you got to get cleared by goddamn NORAD. Like, you're like, I can't do that. But if you can bring it down to like, hey, yeah, here's MEMESat. It's like, oh, like, shit, you can. So that's why I know. That's why I think MEMESat's awesome. But it's for that reason. Like, I mean, that's Joe Rogan is literally like the inspiration for doing this podcast. I listened to him all throughout college. Like, I'm such a fucking hipster with it too. I'm always like, I listened to him back in.
I listened to him. Yeah. Episode 20. I was there.
Really? That's awesome.
No, I didn't watch Joe Rogan.
But I remember listening, and I was just like, what made me like love him was like, it wasn't just like the nightly news and it's edited with camera angles and this commercial brought to you, or this program brought to you by Colgate and Ford. Instead it was just like, and at the same time it was also inspiring because he was like this like fucking meathead who could rip my head off, but he was talking about like psychedelics and peace and love, and it was just this whole combination of like, not only that is he'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, I get it. I'm the Fear Factor guy, and my main audience right now is this. He's like, this one's for you, college kid with the bong. I remember holding a bong and being like, what the fuck? But like, it's that inspired me to, it's like, dude, if I could get into medical school, like I can start a fucking podcast. Like, and it has completely inspired me to do this, and like, it is possible to do it. So Rogan inspired my podcast. Now, my podcast isn't exactly bringing anything, worthwhile out of the world. But fucking MEMESat, if you can get MEMESat going, dude, yeah, some kid might see it and be like, maybe I don't necessarily want to send memes, but you just might be like, well, if MEMESat is possible, then, I can do this too,
Yeah. And I mean, that's the big point behind it all. And I've been lucky enough to visit a lot of classrooms before this whole virus thing shut everything down, right? I've been to 10 or so classes, and
rest in peace, America.
Rest in peace, America. Rest in peace, education. Yeah. I don't know what these kids are doing if they don't have computers, but going to classrooms is just, I love elementary schools. My girlfriend makes fun of me because I, to the core, resemble the energy of a 4th grade class.
Yeah. I
bring Jolly Ranchers. Kids are friggin' amped. Everyone's talking about the planets. I say the word Uranus and they're just like, yeah. They're like, how do I work for NASA? How do I work for NASA? I get to say that word all day.
I gotta send a probe into Uranus. Yeah.
And I bring out a little satellite model, and we do some activities with tape measures and the solar system and marbles and candy and a radio, and these kids are putting things together and getting their hands on it. And I'm like, I don't care if you're wrong, candy. And everyone's like, yeah. And all the kids stayed after class and were talking to me about space and all that. And I'm like, heck yeah. Because I mean, it's kind of weird. I know people who, like me, I was a complete nerd. I watched Into the Universe and all these Science Channel documentaries with kids, and it's all about NASA people that interview NASA engineers. I'm like, that guy's insane. He's so brilliant. NASA engineer.
Yeah.
And you go there and everyone's just a guy. And it's kind of funny because there are definitely people I know at NASA who use it as like a sarcastic hero status. Like one of my friends, Christine, works on rock climbing robots at NASA, and she loves rock climbing. And she started hitting up professional climbers on Instagram, and she's like, hey, if you're in LA, like come over down to JPL. We got a rock climbing robot. It'd be really cool. And they're like, oh my God, a NASA engineer wants to talk to me about rock climbing robots. Yeah. And they're blown away. And I'm like, to these people who we think are awesome, like these pro climbers or these pro whatever, we're like, oh, I work at NASA. I build robots. And they're just like, whoa, no way. And it's kind of the same awe factor. And so when you go into classrooms, and you can't, it can't be that polarizing. You can't be the rocket scientist who's crazy and has Jimmy Neutron hair and is building satellites. I'm a stupid kid who loves memes and took a joke too far, and people kept enabling me. And look at what happened. I own a company now. I never wanted this to happen.
And
I
look
was
what
like,
happened.
I'm going to build a meme satellite.
It's a butterfly.
And you were like, I'm going to start a podcast. Like, F it, I'm going to do my own thing. And so
and then
you go to classrooms and you're stupid.
I see MEMESat, and I'm like, he needs to come on. Fucking clear the schedule. MEMESat tomorrow. Like,
yeah, dude, you were in it. You were like, tomorrow, let's do it. What's a good time, brother?
But no, it's true, man. But I like to enable that because, like, you know, like, not to get, you know, sound like a fucking edgy, like, asshole, but people always like, you know, football players make so much money, but, like, our teachers should be more. To me, that's like, dude, the most watched episodes on my podcast, all 148 subscribers. Shout out, I see you. But they're all like, dude, the most watched episodes are always like Ken Mason, like former rocket scientist, like Rob Cook, like works at NASA. It's or you know, Air Force intelligence. There is like a completely genuine interest in all this shit. So when I say like I'm having on like a NASA, even like the guys I have on, like Rob, who's works at NASA, he's like, dude, like, you know, like I'm just Rob. Like I'm just, you know, he's like, I have a girlfriend and a cat. Like it's not like NASA scientist.
Yeah, but you talk about
yeah. But like no, that's what people like, and to me that's badass because it's like, let's try to elevate that. Like if we can elevate fucking, I sound like a boomer. If we can elevate people rapping about drugs, then why, you know? But seriously, why can't we?
Oh God.
Yeah, we're elevating all these girls shaking their booties on stage, you know, the moral fabric of America. No, but seriously, if we can fucking, you know, if we can elevate fucking anything, what, you know, why not? If we're, as humans, we're gonna put someone on a pedestal. We always do, whether it's Genghis Khan or Hitler. Like, someone's going to the top anyway. I thought
that was going to be a rap reference. You took a totally different direction. I was waiting for, like, we always put someone on a pedestal. Lil Wayne.
Yeah, nope.
Gucci Mane.
Nope, went straight to the Holocaust. Like,
Hitler. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, Hitler. Bo's Law. But, like, we always do it anyway, you know? So it's like when people say, like, athletes who try to, like, curb what they say, you know, they're like, I didn't choose to be a role model. But, you know, like, all these kids look up to me, so it's sort of like a responsibility. Like, I have to be a role model.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna do it anyway as humans. Like we pine for it. We want someone to look up to. So why not build it around fucking science? Like someone's gonna take the spot anyway, instead of fucking Gucci Mane. Like, you know, I get it. Like ice cream paint job. Like it's great, but what if it was cubesat? You know, what if it was something great like that? Because there's actually going to be a benefit from that. You know?
Yeah.
If Post Malone came out with a hit song about self-isolation and quarantine right now, and you know how cool it is to not get coronavirus, like that's the way to go.
The new trend.
Yeah.
When, albeit out of touch these days, like Thrift Shop by Macklemore,
Fuck
right?
Yeah.
White rapper. Goodwill saw a spike.
Yeah.
In people going thrifting, like people buying all these hand-me-down clothes because this guy made it cool for a few months, and people still do it. It's this whole culture.
Yeah, $50 for a T-shirt. You know, making.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I'm in school with kids who are really psyched about space, and some of them are still trying to become rappers. I know at least a few kids trying to become a rapper, and they make good music. I mean. I don't know any gang signs. Do our gang signs the right hand rule if you got 3 vectors, but it's it's really funny.
Gang sign, dude.
There's all these aerospace kids very aware of streetwear culture and rap and staying hip with it, and they're actually like the aerospace is their primary hustle, but they're trying to make rap their full-time thing. And I love it. I love it so much because it's not the typecast nerdy kid. And like everyone does a ton of stuff. I think it's awesome, but it would be interesting, I think. And I think to some degree, I mean, we have science on a pedestal. Like I was saying, you have these kind of kids like me who are like NASA scientists, like, Neil deGrasse Tyson, awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, I watched sports growing up. I love soccer. I didn't watch a ton of football, but like soccer, tennis, swimming, I loved it. And it's always really interesting. And music. I'm a music fanatic. I'm like the person who will scoff at you if I ask for a music recommendation and it's not some extremely indie, like microtonal, whatever. And
here are 3 blind guys beating a trash can with like a petrified corpse.
Exactly. I'm like esoteric, beautiful art. Like
that is pure. Can I bottle this? Can I put this in a syringe and put it right into my fucking carotid? Like, I need this. How many subscribers do they have? 3? Oh. That was, dude, me and my friends had this meme where it was like on SoundCloud or Spotify. It's like, who listens to the most indie shit? Who listens to the guy with sub 10 followers? Yeah.
And it's this competition.
Dude, me and my friend JP, who's just on the podcast, I've known him since freshman year of high school, 2005. He and I were hanging out one day. I forget what he did. But whatever it was just, a lot of intoxicants involved. But I remember we went on like Apple TV or something, and we were literally just like, I don't know, we were fucking high as shit. We were like, fuck it, let's go to because we were looking at these movies. Like, well, this one's rated higher than that one. This one's rated higher than that one. And we're like, I feel like all these ratings have got to be just like bullshit. It's all just like, it's whoever's getting money. Hey, tell them this one's rated, this one's good, and it's all fucking bullshit. It's all sellouts. We're like, the only thing that is real are the bad ratings. They're the ones people truly hate. Yeah,
because then people only rate a movie they didn't like.
Yeah,
I've never
you only
seen
go out of your way to be like I never go into an app and I'm like, YouTube, great app. It's just because it just is. The only ones I go on are where I'm like, I paid for this app and it fucking sucked. Fuck these people. Fuck their grandkids. Fuck the graves of their parents. Like, I'm just like, fuck what they stand for. But so we went into the worst rated movie and we watched it. It was called Troll Hunter. Dude, legit, like one of my favorite movies. It's
really?
Dude, it's like a found footage movie, but it's about like trolls in Norway. But like the CGI is awesome. There's actually like a huge.
Really?
Oh yeah. No, I don't know what the fuck I was going with that, but like, I really don't know where I was going with any of that. Kind of lost.
No worries. I like Troll Hunter. I like indie movies too. I'm a hipster to the core, and I hate myself for it. But I love indie movies. I
mean, like I said, dude, I every time I say it, I want to like kick myself in the dick. But whenever I mention like Joe Rogan, because I just vividly remember the first time I heard him. It was like my first semester after I transferred to UGA, December 2011.
Where'd you transfer out of?
Valdosta.
Gotcha.
Valdosta
Are you from Valdosta?
No, I just went there because I was a fucking idiot in high school. Shout out Valdosta.
Brutal.
Yeah, brutal.
Hope no one in the audience is at VSU. But...
Hey, dude. I was in a fraternity there, and I can say that those are the guys I still talk to every day. So shout out Valdosta.
That's good.
I do have good memories from there. But Yeah, and whenever I say I'm like I listened to Joe Rogan and I listened to him in fall 2011. In case you didn't know, like, before it was big. And whenever I say it, there's part of me that's like, why are you saying that? Like, go fucking stick your head in an oven, you piece of shit. But like, no, I get it. There's, dude, I don't need to like put that up, and I don't need something to happen that would affect that guy's career.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it's chainmail coronavirus.
I was reading through some news about Italy because I was like, what would happen in a quarantine? I'm not sure that you can't just trap people in their house if they're going to die, right? Like not even illness die, but just run out of stuff.
Yeah.
And people in Italy apparently have to get police permission in the red zones. Like the whole country's on quarantine. You're only allowed to leave for work and food and stuff. But in the red zones, you got to go talk to the police and get permission to go out with like a list of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think America has like that. I don't think the police can support that, like on a number of officers per citizen basis.
I just don't see anyone listening.
I know. I mean, dude,
not only that,
I don't know if it's millennials in general or just stupid people. Everyone's blowing it off.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Everyone's like bullshit
and going to events.
But dude, to me, I'm blessed in that like my last grandparent passed away a year and a half ago. That's like the only person I know that I even had like annual contact with. Now it's like, I guess it's a general, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess it makes me think of those, like, you ever seen those YouTube videos where it's like September 12th, 2001? But if you look at it, because we only ever look back, I was 11 when it happened. I don't know, were you even alive?
Well, I was born in 97. I was kind of alive. I was 4.
Okay. Or I don't. Well, I did have one guest on here who was like 18. He was like, "Oh no, I wasn't alive." I was like, "Oh fuck!" But
that's nuts.
Kids these days. Yeah, these goddamn kids don't even know what this. But like, I always think like, man, like my memories are very vague. So I was again 11, so it's not like I really remember it. So all my memories come through like just go look back at the news and stuff. But the news is never like So I was like, I need like, so I remember, this is the other day I went on YouTube and I found, and it was like people in like their late 20s, early 30s. So like roughly our age. And I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. It just shows them in like, they're filming the sky and there's like fighter jets going around Manhattan, make sure nothing happens. And like skyline smoldering. It's like 4 a.m. the next day. But then it pans back down and they're on like a rooftop in Brooklyn, dude. Everyone's smoking like water bottle bongs, like they've been up all night drinking beer and doing coke and shit. They're like, hey, the end of the world. And like that was watching like 9/11 happen. Part of me thinks it's almost like there is no benefit in worrying.
Yeah.
I mean, physiologically, the release of cortisol literally weakens your immune system.
Yeah.
But I think it's almost like keep calm and carry on. I do think there is some benefit with the virus, and then actually going out and partying. Maybe not. That's pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah,
but
I think stay chill, don't panic.
Yeah, I get the like, shit. I went and got a free Xbox One X. I'm like, quarantine. Like, I'm like,
no, dude.
You're about to play Just Cause 4, fucking on 4K.
Ooh. 4K.
Ooh.
Our apartment, we picked up a 24 rack of Corona Light.
Fuck yeah.
Because we're like, time to work from home.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, by no means am I like end of the world, just praying and freaking out. I'm having a good time and hanging out. We're just making sure I'm not licking doorknobs and
it's
slapping people.
Yeah, I think there's a certain benefit in blowing it off, in that it kind of keeps everyone relaxed. And I don't mean like head in the sand like the band playing on Titanic, where it's like, you guys are literally missing notes because the deck is slipping and you're not hitting your instruments, and
everyone's just coasting
and just like, this is bad, the power just cut out, like, okay, this is bad. But like I think there's a certain benefit in like, don't be fucking stupid, don't go out and spread it around, but also like, make memes, me and the boys coronavirus. Like, you gotta...
Me and the boys.
Yeah, me and the boys. Me and the boys when coronavirus hits. I'm making a fucking podcast about... I mean, what better time to have MEMESat?
To do it.
Than
dude, I'm with you.
It's... Yeah, dude, so to answer your question, or not that was a request, I don't know if it's just we're stupid or just ignorant. I guess now's
It's
the
a little
time
bit
to
both. It's blissful.
now's the time to put all those suicidal like memes to test. Everyone that posts all the me in real life memes, like let's see just how willing you are to go. Now everyone's freaking out, and it's like, oh, you posers. You posers. I just wish I would die.
Awful.
Now that it's happening, they're like, lock the doors. I'm like, nah, dude, through and through, I'm ready to go. I'm like,
bro, my roommate, right? This guy I share a bedroom with. I told him when we got our first case in Fulton County, which is where Atlanta is, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Ruthro, what are we gonna do? This kid just turned 21, and he's like, I ain't worried, bro. He said, I've been living on borrowed time for a decade now. I'm like, since you were 11? He's like, I've done a lot of crazy shit in my life. And I'm like, dude, I mean, I guess live it right, right?
Yeah, fucking go out,
I've been living on borrowed time since I was 10.
It's like, dude, you're 10?
My dad had a similar answer. I'm like, oh, man. But, it's good in a sense. I think I don't like the panic, but it puts everything in perspective now.
It does.
Right? Like there's some good paradigm shifts where people are like, wait, I can remotely, or we can make things more accessible here and there. But I mean, some people are dying. It's no good.
Yeah.
You got to be careful. But
absolutely,
I think overall change will come where it needs to, and the world will just keep on chugging.
Yeah.
There's no point in stressing over something that you really can't control other than just do your best in your situation.
Do your best. Isolate yourself. Wash your hands. But
Play
past
Just
that,
Cause 4, 4K.
Yeah. Exactly. But past that, like, yeah, worry about what you can fix until it's fixed. And then don't worry. So it's like, do what you can. You did what you can. Now it's like, yeah, all right, look to make the best of it. Like, fuck, man, fucking watch porn and look at memes, dude. Like, what else are you gonna do? Have a ball. Like, but again, back to 9/11. So I was 11 when it happened, but I always think about like how weird it must have been to have been like 18 or older when I guess your brain's more developed and you're actually aware of what's going on. Because for me, like 5th grade and before, it's all just a blur. And then from like 5th grade to like really halfway through high school, probably 5th grade through 8th grade, it's still like I remember all of it, but it's still just like I look back and I'm like, oh, just like the lens, like the the pubescent brain I was looking through reality at, everything was still so skewed. And it's like,
oh yeah,
now like I look back at like 18 till now, and it's like, yes, definitely changed and matured, but for the most part, like I would have the same level of like have the same level of worry if I was 18 or 29 during coronavirus. To be like, all right, stay inside, don't be stupid. But I always think like so this is weird that we're seeing it now. We obviously have a level of interconnectivity that we've never had before, so everyone's also aware of what everyone else is doing. But like we survived through 9/11. Like imagine 9/11 like right now, like where you are in 29. Like I would not be keeping my cool if like skyscrapers in like New York were falling down and like the Pentagon was hit with a passenger plane. I would not be keeping calm and carrying on. I'd be like, fuck this podcast. Fuck everyone. Lock and load. Like, let's roll. Let's go fucking rob the grocery store. Like, so like this, not good, because it's like, it's definitely real. It's not a scare. It's like, okay, the world's coming to a halt, but it's like we got through 9/11 and like, yeah, a lot of bad shit happened, but it for the most part, we have just, carried on with life. It's almost been 2 decades. It's like, yeah, like, no one's saying 9/11 was bad, but it's like, how often do you actually like think about it? It's like, yeah, I mean, it's, it's just kind of back there. So it's like, yeah,
it's something, it's just this concrete part of the history, right?
So that's how I'm trying to look at this. And I'm like, it's here now and it's serious, but like, eventually this is going to be like, dude, you remember coronavirus? Like, oh yeah.
Exactly. Dude, like, that was a whole thing.
My roommate from UGA he was doing grad school at UGA, went to BC, and he was there. They were like day
British Columbia?
No, Boston College.
Okay.
They were like day drinking in like their apartment when the fucking Boston bomber thing happened. And he was like, but if you hear his stories from it, it's not like, oh, we were so scared. It's like, we were literally just like, well, it's the end of the world. He's like, there was like military in the streets. He was like, so we were just like pounding brewskis in our apartment, just like, fuck it. Like, and it's even that is, it's like, okay, that was a terrorist attack and like a city went in lockdown. Like,
yeah. One thing that I think is going to be interesting about this, and it's a takeaway from 9/11, is like you go through an airport nowadays, TSA is crazy, right? Yeah. People are getting selectively searched. They got all these X-ray machines. So I wonder what the response is going to be to this, because it's not going to be as niche as that, right? Like, yeah, you wash your hands and don't touch other people and cover when you cough, but like, I feel like something's going to be mandated after this, because it's going to be like 50 to 70% of people get infected over time, right? And it's really just controlling how fast the spread is. But there's got to be something going on where a decade or a few years after, the government or UN is going to implement something, right? And it's going to be to contain something like this. It's going to be really weird.
And I was thinking about this yesterday when I left the gym. You know, whatever happens from this, whether it's fucking millions dead or whether just, you know, it did kill some people, but ultimately better safe than sorry. Whatever's going to happen from it, it has disrupted our lives. So there's going to be this, like, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And if this does happen again, how do we make sure we have a response in place? So 9/11, so what do? Right afterwards, it was like, we cannot allow people to get on fucking planes with knives. Like, we just saw what happened. TSA, great. Department of Homeland Security, great. Like, let's create that. Let's do increased war spending, great. We're going to go carpet bomb some brown people in the Middle East. Everyone's like, rah, rah, let's go. Enough time passes that it just goes, fuck the TSA. We got to get to the airport earlier. God damn. It gets to a point where we're just like, fuck this. But it's like how quickly we forget that, like, you know,
something horrible happened.
In the lifespan of the country, 9/11 was yesterday when, 147 people jumped from the North Tower to their death. Like, you know, it was just yesterday that it was like we were watching people jump from a fire to their death on a sidewalk a quarter mile below. And it was like, you know what? Yeah. Maybe there's going to be some longer lines at the airport. Very quickly, we're going to have something that's going to come into place from this. And it's only going to be a couple years before it's like, fucking god damn it. Like, you know, we got to do X, Y, and Z or whatever. It's...
Yeah. I wonder what it will be, though. That's going to be... It's one of those things where it's hard to read the future, but when it happens, you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's how stupid people like myself look at it. Like, it's hard to predict things, and when it happens, it's like, oh yes, of course. Like, you know.
No, dude, I'm exactly like that. Yeah. Something happens, and I would have never predicted. I'm like, oh, that makes total. Like, if you back it up from there, yeah, perfect. Yeah, hindsight 2020.
That's what I always think of Snapchat. How the fuck did no one create Snapchat before Snapchat?
Yeah, dude, it's
disappearing photos.
Picture tasking.
Yeah, and let everyone know whether or not you took a picture of it, like screenshotted it. Bam. Yeah. Instant nudes network. It's right there. It's perfect. How did no one ever fucking think of it?
Yeah, it's nuts.
And the dude that did make it is like younger than us. Dude's like 27. He's a billionaire.
But Snapchat's not... I guess they started doing ads. Remember the glory days before Snapchat had ads? And
Snapchat has ads?
Yeah.
That's a dead giveaway to how my love life is. I'm like, I don't use
Snapchat. I'm completely out of touch and definitely don't talk to women. But yeah, they implemented this thing at least a couple of years ago, and I still used it, where you go through your snaps and like intermittently you'd get an ad in between them, and then there's like the news page where you pay people pay Snapchat, like Forbes or Cosmo or whatever, to feature little Snapchat themed articles for their phone. But
hail corporate, god damn it.
That's what I feel like. I don't know if it's because I've become more and more out of touch since I stopped using it, and Facebook, but I feel like Snapchat's kind of died off a bit. Like, it's strange that TikTok is reviving, because it's kind of like revival of Vine, right? Which are like, wait, this went under.
Yeah.
How is this happening? Like, the business model failed and it was proven. Like,
yeah. How the fuck did Vine fail?
They just had no way to monetize it, right? Like, Snapchat started monetizing. They say, oh, you know, we're broadcasting to this many people would see it on a daily basis. And so as soon as they turn on ads, right, they're turning a profit. So before that, they're like evaluated based on usage, big brain, evaluated. And then they start rolling out ads and they start getting revenue from that. But then Vine never had something like that. They did it and then nothing. And for a while, Instagram was like that too, until they started doing sponsored content.
Yeah.
And now, like, if you're doing marketing, it better happen on Twitter and Instagram. No one's going to care if it doesn't.
Yeah.
Or YouTube, things like that.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah. And AOL Instant Messenger. That's how fucking behind I am. I'm like,
oh, dude, no, I talked to a guy, and being a small company and doing something kind of weird, I'm trying to get media coverage. And it's hilarious because I met a guy who runs a magazine, and I'm like, interesting. How's that doing these days? Like, how many people subscribe to your brick and mortar magazine?
Yeah.
Which is terrible because, right, it's like such a, as far as media goes, it's such a reliable source of information. Typically, I mean, you get biased stuff, but like when it's written cold like that, you know, it's a little different than seeing just these hyperbolized video tidbits.
Just a million a minute articles where it's...
Yeah. I'm like, news is going crazy. So, I mean, everyone's moving towards the web and that, but it's random. I don't know. That's where memes come in.
Yeah.
Memes will become everyone. I mean, it's not going to be r/fellow kids. I had a hilarious moment the first time I went to a school to talk about space and MEMESat and whatever, right? These kids had no idea who I was or what I was doing, right? It's just a bunch of kids. And on my car ride there, I was talking to my girlfriend. She's like, oh, these kids are going to take TikToks of you and make fun of you. And I'm like, no. They're like, they're not going to know what memes are. And I roll up to this high school, and I walk in like, hey, my name's Warren. I'm an aerospace engineer, and I want to send memes to space. That's my 3-sentence pitch. And these kids were just like deadpan back at me, right? It's kind of like when you're in high school and you have a guest speaker, you're kind of psyched that you don't have to pay attention and learn.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, who is this guy? Why is he here? Why is he so special?
Fuck this guy.
Exactly. And so I was sitting in front of the class. I'm like, who here knows what a meme is? And this one kid looked around and slowly raised his hand. I'm like, that was a shameful yes. I said that to him, and everyone started being like, ha, Derek. And then I'm like, but for real, y'all know what memes are? They're like, yeah, we love memes. Like, our homecoming theme this year was memes. And I'm like, that's kind of strange. But
God, we're already
if there's
old.
one concrete idea, if there's one thing holding MEMESat together, it's that I can count on the young people loving memes.
Yeah, it's meme.
But it was so funny. I showed up to the school and I told them once they were like, yeah, we like memes. I was like, sigh of relief. And I was just like, I want you guys to know that for 30 minutes on the drive over here, I'm like, I'm going to show up and they're not going to know what memes are. And I'm going to be the old out of touch man at 22 who's just not with it anymore. Oh, meme satellite. That'd be like,
have you guys watched the Nightly Show? Like,
oh my God.
Have you ever seen the
so
Beatles?
Funny. Talking to like a more, or just an older crowd, right? 50s, 60s. Some people know what memes are, but the ham radio guys are typically pretty up and with it, which is hilarious for ham radio. I go to high schools and I'm just like, y'all know what ham radio is? And they're like, couple kids are like, yeah. I'm like, think of an easy way to pick up chicks. Now, not doing that as ham radio, but
dude, ham radio motherfuckers, they've got the power right now, dude. Quarantine.
You got to be technologically with it to do ham radio and have some sort of internet presence to really know what's going on. Cutting edge.
They've been living for the federal quarantine. They're ready. They're like,
dude, my uncle
this is our
hardcore
time.
Into it.
This is our time.
They're about. I do like DIY radio antennas for presentations at school because kids get to put it together and it's super easy. It's like a piece of PVC and a tape measure, and you can make a pretty powerful antenna to receive. And you can point it. I know where some repeater stations are around Atlanta, and I pointed one when I was testing it for my first time. I pointed one at the repeater station around Georgia Tech, and I was just picking up some amateur radio, and these guys, is middle-aged guys probably. They're like, yeah, so thinking about cutting the cable, it's just, I don't watch most of the channels, too many ads. This other guy comes on, he's like, yeah, I actually just moved to YouTube TV. Other guy's like, YouTube TV, what's this? Isn't that just internet videos? He's like, no, imagine live sports and other things you watch. And I'm like, listening to these old men have a conversation. And it's so funny because that's all the hobby is. I thought it was more than that. Yeah. It's just contacting people and meeting people and having conversation. It's social interaction for people who just are super into it. And so talking to high schoolers about it's hilarious. And I forgot my original point. Oh, old people don't know what memes are. And I love that, which is hard because you're trying to capture some of the older amateur radio guys as your donation audience, right? Yeah. These guys have the $1,000, multi-$1,000 setups, all these radios. Like, I'm doing something completely related to ham radio, right? I'm going to be beaming down memes on amateur bands. Anyone with a simple antenna that you can make or buy for cheap is going to be able to get them down with a radio the size of a USB plug that goes straight in your computer. And I go talk to some of these 60-year-old guys who aren't in a ham radio. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this MEMESat thing. Like, I got a full-time offer from my previous job. And I'm just like, sorry, guys, I'm going to pursue a personal thing. This was really great of you, but I just got to try this out. I'll keep in touch. And my boss is like, what are you doing? I think he's like late 50s. His name's Ron. He's a great guy. But I'm like, I'm doing this thing where I'm building a meme beaming satellite to get people just like aware and psyched on space. You know, I'm going to do lesson plans. I'm going to do classroom visits. We're going to put stuff in space. It's going to be sick. He was like, memes? What's a meme? And then it was over email that we were just chatting. This part we did a little bit over phone, but over email, he's like, oh, Warren, I looked it up and I think I know what your memes are now. He's like, it's kind of like Dilbert, the old cartoon strips of the office guy wearing the tie that curved up.
Yeah, I know what it is.
And I'm like, sure. It's like Dilbert. It's
sure, bud.
I'm like, you completely captured the essence. Memes are Dilbert.
Memes are just inside jokes that we share on like a society level.
Public inside jokes.
Yeah, public inside jokes. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I love it. Some of the meme submissions I've gotten a few hundred, and I scan through them because they can't be wildly inappropriate. Yeah,
I was gonna say, I was supposed to start work this past Friday at doing security at a bar, and for the first day I was supposed to go in, they're like, yeah, don't come in. I was like, all right. And they're like, there's like, we can't, like we're gonna like close down. There's no one's here. Everyone's freaking out.
Oh yeah, I feel bad. I mean, anyone doing, like the memes, not even memes. These are just, you know how memes these days are just Twitter text and a picture.
Those aren't memes. That's some low effort horse shit.
Oh, it's low effort, but it's like the typical image you see on Reddit or something.
Yeah, some reaction. Yeah.
But yeah, people are like, how are the day laborers, day-to-day workers, paycheck to paycheck people going to do? I mean, how are any mom and pop businesses going to stay open, right? You still got to pay rent. You still got to do leases. And I don't know. I laugh at it now because I'm like, what a terrible time to start a business where I go to school. I'm like, what a perfect financial climate to start a charity. Yeah. Everyone's going to have so much money and I can contact a ton of kids.
Hey man, you're in good company because Elon Musk talks about really ramping up investment in Tesla in 2008, right after the recession. And he was like, I was trying to start an electric car company during the recession. It's stupidity squared. But it's
stupidity squared.
Yeah. Dude, the author, Mark Manson, author of Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, he talks about why he decided to like do what he does and be an author and pursue his dream, because he's like the job market was the worst it was in 70 years. He's like, I decided like, fuck it, like might as well go pursue my dream, because if I fail, like chances are I wasn't going to succeed at anything, because like there's no jobs right now. What better time to pursue it than coronavirus? It's like if I fail, I think everything was failing anyway. Like
I'm taking huge advantage of it because I had all these like meetings and school visits planned, and I'm currently trying to get the like official charity status, right? Where the IRS is like, oh yes, you're a good guy, you're not a criminal, you have the account structure we need, and you follow our guidelines. And so I'm trying to get the official charity status, and like in this gray area between when you apply and when you get selected, there's a couple months, a month or two, if you do a certain format. And so with all the school visits being canceled and with my school at Georgia Tech being moved to online, I'm just like really getting to power through some of the business stuff, which is in all regards awesome. Like I'm not doing homework or having to drive around Georgia. I'm like sitting down and writing grants. I'm like, hopefully I can make money.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, dude, that's how I'm looking. And I'm like, I might be able to get some podcast guests that normally wouldn't do my podcast. 'Cause I've
Yeah,
literally
because
been,
everyone's going to be chilling out.
well, I've been starting pitches like, hey, you're probably stuck in your home, so just like, I'm Tommy. Can I get you to do my, like, what fucking better way?
And who are you reaching out to? What sort of people are you reaching out to?
Well, I always tell everyone this. I get about a 5% success rate, so I reach out to everyone, and it's
That's pretty good, though.
oh yeah, no, I'm happy with it. But dude, it's like last week I decided I was like, man, I'm just gonna fucking shoot for the stars. So I sent an email to General Mattis's secretary, former Secretary
Is
of
that the
Defense.
Space Force?
No, that's former Secretary of Defense. He stepped down like less than a year ago, and
Okay.
I was like, shit, might as well fucking have Mattis on. Like this guy, he is a meme, and their secretary, you have to pay Mattis to come speak. It's like $70,000 an hour, and I was like, hey, so I don't have any money, but I do have Skype. Do you think General Mattis would like to? And they didn't respond to me, so I sent another email like a week later, and I was like, can I speak to General Mattis for 30 minutes? And I won't bring up politics. I won't bring up like war stories or classified technology. It's just shoot the shit about being retired. And I got an email like an hour later, and it said like, he's very flattered and he laughed, but he said he's too busy at this time. And I'm like, well, at least I got like a response.
Well, you got at this time.
Yeah. Well, so I sent an
that's an
email this
opening.
morning, and I was like, so I was on the treadmill. I sent an email, and I was like, if General Mattis quarantined. So I played it off like I have bargaining chips. I was like, if you could just let him know that the offer's still on the table, if he'd like to come on Tommy podcast. I know,
dude,
I know he's
like
worth $5 million as the former Secretary of Defense, but I just want to, float it to him. Just let him know that the offer's still on the table. I'm still willing to have him on. So
Businessman at the core.
yeah, dude. So I've just been emailing people, and I'm like, hey, so the nation's shut down. Like, what better time? So
What's going on?
yeah,
That's sweet.
yeah.
One of my favorite things about having started a company is you don't know you're going to do it, but you become one of the world's best telemarketers. You just
Yeah.
email marketers,
you
right?
master
I'm
cold
emailing
calling.
every small satellite and space company in existence.
Yeah, you master the cold call technique.
Exactly. Because I'm like, how am I going to get money? And I'm like, Because you start thinking like, oh, I could crowdfund this. And I'm like, there's only 30 people stupid enough to think this is funny. And you're like, but if I tie in the big dogs, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've gotten aerospace companies to throw a couple $1,000 at me, and I've been
That's
blown
fucking
away.
awesome.
And this is before I'm officially a charity. So I'm a nonprofit, and I am a real company, but I haven't gotten my tax exempt status. And I'm like, hey, I know you guys are a growing company. You might be looking for tax breaks. I can't promise you one, but it would be retroactive. And we do things in STEM education and outreach that kind of align with what your company does. And if you want to get an outreach, like, let me know. I'm sure we can put something together. And I get on a call with them. And I mean, a lot of the times I'm not like a slick talker or anything. I'm not someone who BS's a ton.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, well, I've had this experience and I'm familiar with you from conferences and industry. And, I'm just trying to launch a CubeSat. I was wondering if you want to support us in lending some engineers advice during like a monthly review, or some funding would be great, or just using your engineers to go out to schools once a month and talk to kids about space, given our lesson plans that we develop. And a lot of them are like, what's the easiest of those three? And they're like, we'll give you money. And and it's so funny. I had if we don't get the NASA free launches for education, I've been thinking like, man, the launch is the most expensive thing. The satellite costs like $15,000 and another like $5,000 or $10,000 to make a flat sat version. So think of like, you have a satellite in space, but you need another one to test stuff on it. So you break it apart and you lay it out on a table and you test your commands and look for bugs, make sure no errors happen. Or if you get an error in space, you can troubleshoot it on the ground before you potentially damage your satellite. So it's not expensive. CubeSat's 10, 15 grand if you do a lot from scratch. If you start getting pretty intense, it can be in like the $100,000, $200,000 range, but the launches are what's like $100,000.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, shoot. So there's a company called Rocket Lab that they're working on doing 1 a week launches of CubeSat payloads to like a couple 100 kilograms.
Oh shit.
And they're blowing up out of Huntington Beach in New Zealand. They're like pretty big on the map.
Just CubeSats?
So I think it's like, instead of a big satellite, they do the small sat payload, which is still probably like 50 to 100 kilos. and then they do a bunch of cubesats as secondary, and they've like mastered the art of mass producing versus reusable. They've mastered the art of mass producing rockets. They got these world champion sailing ship builders to come do their satellite structure out of carbon fiber and composites.
Oh shit.
And then they ironed it out. They ironed out the design so it can be rapidly manufactured to support their 1 a week launches from New Zealand. And I guessed the email of the CEO, whose name is Peter Beck. And I was just kidding with some guys in my class, some of my buddies, because they know I'm trying to do this MEMESat thing. They think it's kind of stupid and funny.
Yeah.
And so when I'm just like, they egg me on and they're like, oh dude, just email Elon. And I'm like, no, we gotta go more precise. Elon would never respond. I'm like, I'll guess Peter Beck's email. And I'm like, dear Mr. Beck, I'm like, I've assembled a team. We have the resources. All we need is a launch spot. How would you like to take advantage of helping us send memes into space? And I didn't get a reply from Peter, but he forwarded me to the VP of commercial launch, Shane. And Shane called me and he's like, hey, I'm with Rocket Lab. I'm the VP of launch. Peter sent me this email saying you needed some help setting some stuff up. There's something with this meme satellite. I'm like, oh yeah, funny story, Shane, funny story. And
Yeah.
I'm like, so it started as a joke, but now it's this educational platform. And I gave him the whole 15-minute pitch.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going to lie, Warren, I thought the meme stuff was pretty dumb. He said it a little more profane than that, but I'm going to keep it PG for the nonprofit audience. And
Warren, I thought you were a fucking bag of diapers.
he's like, I thought it was so stupid. He's like, but you won me over. Like, let's get you in touch with our head of communications about this outreach stuff. And I'm like, this is hilarious. You can just, I don't want to say you can point blank email anyone and get something, but you don't know until you try.
Well, dude, Dale Comstock, Delta Force. Like, Delta Force is like, literally like when the president's like, I need someone dead, that's who they call. I was like,
that's crazy.
So I saw some interview with him and I'm like, who's this? I was like, this guy's insane. Like, this guy's a fucking killer. He looks exactly like what you think he is, just like a killer. And I was just like, I like went on Instagram and like he had his email listed and I was just like, fuck it. And I was just like, instead of like, hello, I was like, I have a podcast and I'd like that. I just said like, Mr. Comstock. And I was like, you look like you got some awesome stories. Do you want to shoot the shit over Skype? I was like, nothing serious. It's not live, whatever. And her response was just like, sure, I'd be delighted. And I was like, holy shit. And so like, I have his number. So like, he'll call me and be like, yo, what are we doing the next episode? I finally asked him, I was like, dude, why did you do like you work for the CIA? Like this motherfucker, like this dude's legit. Yeah. And I asked him, I was like, why'd you do my podcast? Like, you're more interesting than most people Joe Rogan's had on. And he was like, no one's ever asked me. And I was just like, that stuck with me because I was just like, how many people are out there that just no one's ever asked? And that's the only thing.
I think a lot.
Dude,
you can walk away from most people with a crazy story.
Yeah, dude, I emailed the fucking, same with you, dude. I fucking figured, I was like, well, it's got to be the first name and like the initials the last. So I emailed the fucking head of Xbox. I was like, hey, will you come on my podcast and talk about Xbox Series X, the new console coming out of Christmas?
Yeah.
Granted, he said no, but I got a response from him.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy fuck. So like,
these people are real and they talk.
They are. And
it's sick.
If you try to email fucking, Post Malone or goddamn Red Hot Chili Pepper, it's like probably not going to get a response. But a lot of people that you put out as just like on a pedestal, like, oh, they won't respond. You literally just do it. And if they don't respond, well, now okay, they don't respond.
Yeah.
But dude, I've got, even if it's just a no, I got a no directly from General Mattis's secretary, who said,
that's awesome.
who said he laughed and said to tell you he would love to, or he's very flattered, but he can't at this time. But I was just like, this is a goddamn. That was the motherfucker who below Trump could control the nukes, and he was like, hey, Tommy's podcast, very flattered, can't at this time. But like, to me, I'm like, that's a total win. I got a response.
Yeah, dude.
Like, I didn't give a shit what the response.
You don't know until you try, man. You don't know until you try.
Exactly, dude. So yeah, man, just fuck yeah. I saw on your post that you tweeted at Elon. Do you think you're gonna?
No response.
Dude, if anyone would though, it would be him. If anyone would,
I know.
it's just a
It was
matter of
really
getting it to
funny
them.
when I was talking to like some lawyers and stuff. They're like, so how do you think this thing's going to get launched? I'm like, all right, hear me out. We're going to build up a following on Reddit and Instagram. And slowly but surely, I've been pretty bad at it because I'm just partial to social media. But I'm like, we're going to tweet at Elon and we're going to get a lot of retweets because this is funny. And he's going to be like, F it. Let's do it. And
I think that's a perfect
I
plan.
think, so I got like 50 something retweets, a couple hundred likes when I did say, let's do it. But I think when we're closer to the end and we're able to say, you know, we have it and we build up a little more notoriety around this physical entity that is MEMESat, it's not just an idea anymore. I think that we'll try again, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. It'd be really, really cool.
I think it would absolutely work. I don't think that's stupid at all. I think that's absolutely the way to go.
Yeah, no. I think it's the way to go. So we got a team. We got a team down in Athens, like 12, 15 kids. I say kids, undergraduate engineers, like first and second years. And they're chugging away. I mentor them a little bit, but I'm in Atlanta a lot of the time, so I try to make it down to Athens a couple times a week. And I answer their questions and we work together on stuff. But these kids have like a fire in their eyes. They're about it. Because it's something that's like
MEMESat.
Something I love, and this is something I've wanted to do forever, not just MEMESat. If you asked me at the end of high school or like 4 years ago in college, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? I couldn't say, oh, I want to be a rocket scientist. I want to do whatever. I'd say, I want to do something that's really, really funny, but technically very difficult. And so, like, me and my friends were like, oh, dude, we should email Pornhub and see if we can build drones for them. Like, we should.
Fuck yeah.
And I'm like, MEMESat is just an extension of that idea. If I could, I'd become like Mark Rober. I'd be like a YouTuber
someone from
that
Pornhub
makes
on my podcast. Thank you for the inspiration. I'm gonna fucking get someone from Pornhub. Yeah.
Tweet at him or something.
Yeah.
Email him.
I'll fucking email him. That's what I do, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, you reach out and you do these things. Like when Gucci Mane got out of jail, and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for people to develop my Brick Squad label. DM me on Twitter. DM me your resume." And so I shot on my resume. I'm like, Gucci Mane, I don't know why you'd need an aerospace engineer, but if you want something that flies or goes fast, I'm your man. Didn't get a response, but I'm like, man, that would be funny. And so MEMESat, and I'm glad it reaches these kids in the same way, because some people are like, oh, cool, it's amateur radio, or oh, cool, whatever space. But the people that I think I connect with the most are like, ha, 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 memes are funny. And then you think about it and you're like, this sounds pretty hard to do. Like, we're going to have multiple radio. It's all within 10 centimeters of each other, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be as cheap as possible, cheaper than anyone's really ever done it before. It's going to have more memory, because like on your phone, right, you got like a 64 gig iPhone, something like that. In space, storage like that is extremely sensitive and extremely expensive. So you need your memory to be powered at all times. Otherwise, you lose it if you use RAM, which is a volatile memory. If you want to use more permanent memory, it's very susceptible to radiation. A lot of things people don't know about space is that it's not just, oh, it's cold or oh, it's hot. There's stuff getting beamed out of all directions of the universe.
Yeah.
That's gonna frig your stuff up. It's gonna hit your board. It's going to fry something. It's going to flip numbers. It's going to flip ones and zeros in your software, right? You need things in place to stop that from happening. And currently, high capacity memory is like a premium for that sort of thing. Because if you can do a bunch of storage that's radiation safe, I mean, your payloads can be better and whatever. But for our purposes, we're doing that research for memes, which is funny because it's this very industry applicable thing we're researching and going to be writing papers on. But it's our test data is a bunch of users submitted memes. And so it's like, the way that my company is classified is that I'm a research institution. I am a research institution, a charitable research institution, where I'm working with universities and we're doing like novel, groundbreaking space research, and we're publishing our findings and we're going to sell it. And we're just doing it in funny ways.
I fucking love it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just want to be like a modern engineering comedian.
Yeah. Dude, I think it's fucking brilliant, and I think it's gonna work too, man. It's
we'll see
because it's got the. If it wasn't MEMESat and it was just a CubeSat, despite how technically insane and interesting and impressive that would still be, the reality is no one would give a shit because it's like hey, we're researchers from whichever medical school and we're trying to make insulin made out of whatever cat food or whatever. Okay, cool. That there'd be a neat AMA on Reddit that you'd click on for 10 seconds while you're shitting, but like if you look at the top comments, you'd see if there's any funny comments, and then that's about it. Whatever.
First thing.
But when it's if it's hey, we're trying to hey, we're building an electron microscope and we made Elon's face out of atoms.
Yeah.
Well, now you're going, oh, cool. Despite how insanely impressive the technology is, regardless, you have to have funny. You have to have that Trojan coronavirus. You have to have that viral delivery mechanism.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm
literally what a meme is. So it's MEMESat. I guarantee you there are a ton of people our age trying to put up MEMESats or satellites, CubeSats. And they're equally impressive. But the reality is
they're more impressive.
Yeah, but I would say less because the reality is I don't give a fuck past like, oh, that's cool. They're taking donations. Okay, bye. But if it's MEMESat, all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're doing this thing and we're gonna shoot back dank memes. Now it's like, fuck it, all right, I'm on board.
So I think what happened is, we had this idea and we're like, this is hilarious. And, you just kind of realize as you talk to more people, you're like, you know what, you can, instead of just doing this as a joke, because me and my buddies could all work for a summer and we could pull together 10K if we lived like we currently do. We could pull together 10K in our engineering jobs and just do this. But that's not as fun. That's not, I think the coolest part is the challenge and then using it to really make it a platform for something.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, oh, this MEMESat's hilarious. I'm like, but we can friggin' inspire the next generation of astronauts.
Exactly.
And I think that's the coolest part is you can totally spin it and be like, make it wild.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can learn ukulele. Okay, cool. That's kind of a weird hipster white girl thing to do. But if you learn ukulele so well and then do something hilarious, like do this really intense metal cover of Chop Suey or some like Megadeth song, people are going to be like, that's really funny. Yeah. Like that makes ukulele cool to me. I want to learn Chop Suey on ukulele.
Exactly.
And so now you got all these friggin' ukulele players making YouTube tutorials of Chop Suey, but it's like, I want to do that. I want to do something that's so funny and I want to do it so well that people are like, that's kind of crazy. Like that's beyond how funny that is. Like that's impressive.
Yeah. It's insane that they did it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. And I think it's really funny because if you knew me, you'd be like, this kid is so stupid.
Dude, it's the same with everyone. Anyone that says they're not stupid is a true jackass. Anyone, dude, you got to acknowledge you're stupid. Dude, I'm the first to say, I'm dumb as shit. I don't know what I'm doing. I've had people tell me, they're like, you're well read. I'm like, on this, I skim the surface, so I know, looks like I know what I'm talking about.
I'm with you.
I'm like CubeSats. I'm like, dude, I listened to an hour lecture on repeat last night while I played Grand Theft Auto, just so I'd kind of know what I was talking about today.
That's my girlfriend. I think it's time to time to cut it. But dude, we'll definitely have to pick this up another day. This has been awesome.
Well, dude, we're all fucking quarantined, so I'll shoot you my I normally have work weekends, but it's all the fucking bars closed. So yeah, let me know if you want to do one this weekend or something, or I'll just shoot you my schedule for all the days.
And I mean, I got your number. We'll keep contact.
I don't know why the fuck I'm acting like it's difficult to reach me. I'm like,
literally. I've gotten interviewed by some people, just a few people, and it was much less fun than this. So I've appreciated this a lot.
Fuck yeah. Well, that's good for me to hear, man. I don't want people to not have fun on here.
It's great because I've been like, when people write articles, it's like conversational, but they definitely have their questions that they're jumping to on their sheet of paper. But I like this. This is very conversational and good.
Yeah, the only paper I have is just so I stop fucking interrupting.
I like it, man. I think a podcast will grow well with time. I think you're pretty engaging. I like it.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, my notes aren't even fucking My notes are only applicable for like a minute before I forget what they said. I was talking to the Delta Force guy, and I made a note that said Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is this super like new agey spiritual guy, and I was somehow going to try to tie it into Delta Force. I have no idea, and I never did, but here it is. Delta Force, Eckhart Tolle. Yeah, but the point being, that's the only paper I have, man. Yeah, dude.
All
so,
right.
I know you got to go.
Head out,
So,
Tommy, but
yeah.
it's been
So,
good.
Godspeed, brother. Don't die, and I'll
Stay safe.
I'll text you. Let's do another one.
All right, see you, man. Bye.
Peace, brother. Peace.